Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And I'm Mike.
and welcome back to No Limits, the Thriller Podcast. How you doing today, Mike?
I am great for a number of reasons, but one, because last week you started the pod talking about these balding heads. So I'm pumped that tonight we get to debut our new cover up for the balding heads, Thriller Pod baseball cap. Check those things out.
Yeah, man, you had me going. You were keeping up a good face when I said, "Man, we should really get hats." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that'd be sick." I know. And then they showed up on my door. It showed up. I was supposed to be unboxing it last week, but it showed up a day after we talked, and I wasn't supposed to open it up until this week. And of course, there's nothing like my kids open up everything. Like the only time they don't ever open up stuff is around Christmas time because we yell at them.
Yeah.
Everything else, they're just like, "All right, I'm opening it." Addie thought it was her birthday like 2 weeks ago. She's like, "Oh, is this for me?" But anyways,
We can get her hat.
Yeah, got this
We
sick
get her a
hat.
onesie.
I don't know if she could wear a hat with a bullet hole on it. Got my new shirt.
Yes, sir.
And boom,
The hoodie.
baby.
The zip up hoodie. Dude, that thing is comfortable, let me tell you. Our first round of merch maybe didn't, wasn't up to par.
Limits on the back.
This drop is absolutely crushing it. This is the most comfortable t-shirt I've worn. That's the most comfortable hoodie I've ever worn. And this hat, man, that thing is embroidered too. That just is some solid embroidery right there.
Yeah,
and
it's a nice, good quality hat.
Yeah.
And
the mugs.
We've always had this with the mugs. With the bullet hole through the back.
Guys, all this is available at thrillerpod.com. And while you're there, something else you can do is join the Patron Book Club. That is the group of the most dedicated thriller fans and readers in the world. And they help support this podcast. They're the reason we can make more podcasts. And so head on over to thrillerpod.com, click the book club tab if you want to be part of this group. But let me tell you, the book club is going to have a great time talking about Cold Zero, because this book already is kicking off 2026 with a thrill. It is nonstop action out of Brad Thor and Ward Larsen. And the only thing better than reading this book was talking to them and interviewing them on the podcast, which you guys are about to hear.
Yeah, we had a fun time. We had it, as Brad called it, the Brady Bunch, the squares, on our screen. It was great. Got interesting at times. Like apparently we're in Brad's head sometimes with our comments, but hey, that's what we're here for. We're here to push the boundaries. But this one should not be slept on. I want everyone to go out, buy a copy, listen to this. We recorded a little bit of a spoiler thing. I don't know if Mike's going to run this at the end or separate it out, but book comes out February 11th, correct?
I believe so. Yeah. And I think I'm going to put that spoiler section as a post credit. So definitely listen to our episode. We'll market it as spoiler free for the interview, but we'll drop a little review that post credits after you hear the outro music. We are going to hit you with a spoiler filled discussion. So tune into the episode, get the book, rip through it as you will. You cannot put this one down. Listen to the after credits for a little after hours with Brad and Ward. I really was so interested in hearing how they came up with those action scenes. There are a few moves in this book, unlike anything you have ever read before. They are absolutely enthralling thriller scenes on a geopolitical scale that is beyond what you can imagine. So check it out and stick around for the spoilers after you're done. Today, we are joined by two incredible guests, both the first author we've ever had on the No Limits podcast and the best dressed author we've had on the podcast. We'll let the audience decide who's who. So welcome back, Ward Larsen and Brad Thor.
Who is who?
Howdy. Good to see you, fellas.
Hey, guys.
Good to see you guys too.
Yeah, like Chris just said when you guys came in, didn't have this on the bingo card, getting both Ward and Brad together to talk about a co-author book. So congrats on Cold Zero. It's awesome tracking the buzz online. I know you guys are about to launch the book tour. And so it just seems as if this was meant to be. This book is like Backlash meets Black Ice meets Dark Vector. It seemed right in your wheelhouse as authors and creatives. So can you tell us a little bit about how this partnership came to be?
Well, I'm happy to take that first one out of the gate. I had a kind of a bucket of ideas, stuff that I wanted to do that I didn't think fit or I did not want to put into the Harvath universe that I wanted to do outside of Harvath. And I also didn't want another book that I just sat there and toiled over for a year by myself. I wanted to kind of pump some energy into my own creative experience. And so I talked to my editor. I said, listen, what do you think about finding a co-writer and doing a thriller, but outside of the Harvath universe? And my editor said, do you have some people in mind? She first said, what are your ideas? And I told her, and she's like, okay, pick one of those three and then find somebody. And I've been a fan of Ward's for a long time. And Ward and I got together at Thriller Fest and we had coffee because I'd said, hey, I'm kind of thinking about doing a project. You might be interested in it. And I didn't know which book idea Ward would warm to, but of course the one that had aviation in it was the one that Ward said, yeah, let's do that one. And it was just such a great match because Ward is such a great thriller writer and he brought so much to Cold Zero that this book just, if I tried to write this book by myself or with anyone else, it just wouldn't have turned out as great as it did. Ward is the secret sauce in this book.
Well, I got to say the same. I mean, Brad is very cinematic when he writes, and this thing has already been optioned for a movie, and I don't think that would have happened without his input. So I think 1 + 1 was more than 2 in this case. I think it really came together.
Yeah, I guess we could jump to that since you brought it up. How did that come about? I know last time we talked, Brad, you had mentioned that there was something in the works, but I wasn't expecting that would be outside the Harvath universe. How did this deal with Netflix come about?
So I told my team, once Ward and I started working on this, I said, listen, when the book is done and we can finally share it in Hollywood, I said, I would like to have this placed before Ward and I come out with the book, before publication date. So we turned it in and then we kicked everything off in Hollywood this fall with going out to everybody with early copies of Cold Zero. And it's neat because Pete Berg, I love Pete Berg. Pete Berg is an incredible producer, director. Pete did some of my favorite movies like Lone Survivor, which is based on the book all about Marcus Luttrell's experience. He did a great movie in 2007 called The Kingdom with Jamie Foxx and Jennifer Garner. He did the movie and then the TV show Friday Night Lights. And he's got an awesome series on Netflix right now called American Primeval, which is just off the charts, full of action, and is really, really cool. So Pete's partners, one in particular, Ezra Emanuel, who's another amazing producer, Ezra and the rest of the Pete's team read the book. And they contacted Pete down in Australia. Pete's been working on the adaptation of a book called The Mosquito Bowl. And so The Mosquito Bowl is about a bunch of NFL players that after the attack on Pearl Harbor decided to sign up to be U.S. Marines. And so they are in Australia for getting ready to ship out to Iwo Jima, and they have one last football game. And none of them come back from Iwo Jima. So Pete's down in Australia. His partners contact him, and they're like, Pete, you got to read this book that Thor and Larsen wrote. It's amazing. And Pete's like, guys, you know me. I don't read while I'm making a movie. I don't. It's like nothing else comes in. That's it. And they're like, listen, Pete, if you do not read this book, somebody else is going to scoop it up. You need to read it. Trust us. And so Pete broke his own rule about not reading while he's on the set. He picked up Cold Zero, told us he could not put it down, loved it. And he told his partners, he goes, make the deal happen. Get it. Get that book for us. So Pete had a really cool take on it. And Pete said, listen, I'm not going to change this book. I think it's fantastic. I think this is a really smart thriller. He said, I think we can do a colder, bolder, more badass Hunt for Red October kind of a thing with this. And I said, okay, what do you think writer-wise? And he said, well, there's a guy I've been wanting to work with. Let's get him the book. And we did. And he loved it. And it's Nick Pizzolatto. And Nick created the True Detective series on HBO. And Nick also did the most modern adaptation of The Magnificent Seven, which Chris Pratt was in and all this kind of stuff. Right. So just a great team. They loved it. And Pete has his first look deal at Netflix. So we went to Netflix, and Netflix is like, we'll take it. This thing's so awesome. There are a lot of other people that wanted it in Netflix. Netflix grabbed it. They said, this is going to be huge. So that's how it happened.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ted Sarandos.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I could see why. I could see why they want to eat this one up, because as I'm reading it, it's kind of going cross genre. And I don't know if you guys set out to do that, but it takes on this really epic proportion. because at one point I'm reading a survival story, but it's also an espionage tale, a CIA thriller. It's a techno thriller, which is both in your wheelhouses with the cutting edge of transportation and planes and submarines. A special ops rescue mission breaks out. It's a chase scene. I don't know how to categorize this one. And the good part is it's a grab bag of everything I love the most in books. Was that part of your plan going into it, or was that natural?
I think having it set up at the top of the world is kind of unique because there aren't any books really that come fresh to mind that took place in the actual Arctic. It's such a unique environment where you don't have any landmass. You've just got these huge flows of ice floating around in circles. But you can have people up there surviving in a situation like this, and you can also do what we did in the book, which close it off with the weather, where you can't reach them. They are on their own, at least for a few days. They're going to be unreachable, even with the best of equipment, even with icebreakers and all that stuff. So it really creates, like you say, that survival situation. There's the geopolitics of it with Russians and Chinese and the Americans getting involved that are all after this one piece of technology. So, yeah, putting in that one unique place, I think really, really set this book off.
I guess, we want to stay like pretty much spoiler free. Maybe we can touch a little bit at the very end. You guys are kicking off the book hasn't even come out. No, it comes out in a week. These two heroes, this dynamic duo, obviously you both have your own perspectives from your own, heroes you've built. How did you decide to have this duo together? Like you guys have the duo with the writing.
Well, we definitely wanted to do something different than we've done before, and we wanted two protagonists. We wanted a male and a female, and so a good part of the book, which I think played out really well, was where does your duty lie? So if you're the surviving first officer in this situation, and this is where Ward's background was just invaluable, from all the technical details to, okay, if you survived and you had X amount of passengers, what's your duty? Your duty's to the passengers. That's your job. You've got to see that they are okay, the survivors of this crash. And then you look at Casey and it's like, well, what's her duty? Right? She's still on a mission. She has to continue the mission that she began on behalf of the CIA. So she gets put in this interesting position of, well, she wants to survive, but how much can she share with the first officer, with Brett Sharp? So there was all of that dynamic there too. So Ward talks a lot about, I think it's a great way to explain it, is we both got this clean sheet of paper. We both got to step away from kind of the regular stuff that we've been doing, the series we've done, respectively. And it gave us this opportunity to kind of spread our wings and to go in a different direction. And the word we've used a lot during our interviews and stuff is it was really refreshing. It's kind of nice to try something different. Not that we don't love the other work that we do, but this was really fun because it was almost like, there were literally no constraints on us. We could do whatever we wanted to do because there was no book that preceded it. So there's no body of work. There's no universe of characters we have to worry about. We could play God in this book and have everybody doing whatever we wanted them to do. And that was fun.
I think the female protagonist was kind of self-fulfilling because we needed a CIA, somebody who was organizing this, I won't say theft, but the acquisition of this device. Okay, so she's the one in charge of that. But the first officer, he is not only has that legal obligation to take command because he's a senior officer surviving, the only officer surviving, but he also has a lot of knowledge about what's on the airplane, the survival equipment on the airplane. And he's been through that training, in his military days, so he has that SEER training. So, yeah, I think they kind of just fell into place naturally, those two characters.
But I also like that they're kind of like, obviously she's in the CIA, but it's more, they're not these larger than life protagonists that, you guys have, for lack of a better, you built up in your own series. Like they're not ordinary people that rise to the occasion, or, ordinary people that are in different walks of life are able to like come together and do that. And I like how you switched that up and brought that nuance to this new blank slate, as you said, Brad.
Yeah, and I think that burden being lifted off of your shoulders, not beholden to that universe, and how many other books do I have to sift through to see if I get a detail right or wrong? Because us fans, we look for that. We like it like an encyclopedia, getting all the details right. I think I felt as a reader that burden was also lifted, that I could just go along for the ride. And on page one, I say go along for the ride and mean it literally. We've got automated vehicles taking over with AI involved. We've got planes doing unexpected things. We have icebreakers and submarines often in precarious situations. What was it like crafting this? And we don't want to give away too much about this device, but both of your books always have cutting edge technology. What was it coming up with this idea and incorporating AI into the future of what the next gen military might look like?
One of the things that Brad first said to me when we were kind of having that coffee, and he was kind of, feeling me out about whether or not we would be able to work together, is he asked, "Are you a pantser or an outliner?" And that, I said pantser just because I am. But, it really, I don't know if we could get along otherwise, because we both have that big overriding idea. We know the beginning and roughly the end, and we just work our way there. And the way he describes it, that I kind of like, is you are putting yourself in the position of the reader, where you don't know what's going to happen. So that was that freedom we had, where we were both pantsers. We were both just had this big idea, a clean sheet of paper, and we were able to kind of take it in a lot of different places. So there's a lot of points of view in this story. Like you say, we have all these different characters and countries involved, and it got a little complicated, but I think it all pulled together in the end.
And per the MacGuffin, Ward and I went back and forth a lot on exactly what this piece of tech should do. So you've read the book. So those who haven't read the book, I mean, essentially, this is a story about an extremely clever Chinese scientist who has developed an earth-shattering piece of technology. It'll change the balance of power for whoever holds it. It is connected to AI, but that's where Ward and I were like, all right, we don't want this to go crazy. We don't want this to be like something insane with AI. We're like, how do we do this without overdoing it? And also, for this thing, how do we at least give an example of what it can do? And that was fun for us too. So that was one area where we're like, okay, let's not overdo it. Let's make it cool. Let's not go too crazy with it. And then let's at some point put it to work, because as a reader, you'd be going, wait a second, if they've got access to this really cool thing that they could use against the people that are chasing them to, if nothing else, buy themselves a little bit more time, why aren't they doing that? So we were really thoughtful as we were doing this. We're like, okay, if this was you and me and we're running away from all these people and we've got X, Y, and Z at our fingertips, what are we going to do? Like just even the discussions on the survival stuff, like Ward was, I thought was so brilliant. We talked about, okay, the fuselage is cracked in half. Well, there are these big circular life rafts in the airplane, and you could inflate one of those in the cabin to kind of block, the missing back half of the aircraft. You could inflate one of those and then stuff it with clothes around there. So there's just so much cool stuff in this that, like I said, I don't think this book would have been half as cool as it is without Ward's input, because he just brought so much real world stuff to this. After Thriller Fest, I have to tell you, after Thriller Fest, Ward and I were actually on the same flight back home. He was going through Nashville, and it's funny, like we sat in the front row of the airplane and he's pointing to stuff in the cockpit while the door's open saying, well, we could do that with this, and in the book we could do that. I mean, like we started on the airplane leaving Thriller Fest. It was very cool.
I showed you the crash axe. There's a crash axe on every flight deck. Exactly. They are deadly weapons if you chose to be. They're really cool devices, and every airplane has one. So yeah.
Oh wow.
I want to be a fly on the wall. I want to be the third seat in that row.
I got a question for you guys, because you guys have both read Brad and I pretty extensively. As you were reading this book, did you ever get to a point where you go, Brad wrote that or Ward wrote that, or was it seamless where you really couldn't tell one from the other?
That was going to be my next question. Obviously how you guys went about writing it, because to me, I picked on like some very little nuances, but for the most part, I thought you guys did a pretty seamless job of meshing the two styles together.
I tried. I got to say, I was distracted. I was a little squirrel as I was reading, trying to go back to passages and try to guess who wrote this one. And ultimately, I realized it was a failure. It was a complete failure. I couldn't tell the difference. And I went in whenever a chapter started thinking, I'm like, okay, is there a clue? I mean, Brad, you're the master of little cliffhangers at the end of a chapter that need me to turn to the next page. I was like, oh, darn, Ward does that too. And then everything on a plane, I was like, this has to be Ward. This has to be Ward. But then something happens and I'm like, oh, that's the Brad idea right there, that this character makes this move. So I just gave up with the exercise and went along for the ride, because this is a book, the action's nonstop. So if you try to pick it apart and do little exercises like that, the book will just grab you and pull you in, and you can't think about anything but the story.
Perfect.
Oh, that's
That's what we want.
So,
We did our
and one
job
thing,
then.
the limits of AI is not going to help you with a polar bear. So, I mean,
Right. No, it's not.
Yeah.
but I love that little touch. It really, and the funny thing is, it was a weird experience reading this book during Ice Mageddon. I don't know how you guys are doing with the ice storm, but I didn't think anything could make me colder than going out and shoveling the 12 inches of ice. And then I'd come in and read the book, and I was even colder inside my house reading.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, we got a good pub date. Being in February, it's been cold out. Yeah, that works well.
Yeah, your cover is even like just looking at it makes me cold. You know. It's
Yeah,
an
the
awesome
cover turned out
though.
great. Yeah, we were really happy with the cover. They did a fantastic job with that.
The last book I felt that way, and even on the cover, was Dark Vector, your book, Ward. Did that play any role in, Brad, you picking out Ward by seeing what he was able to do there? Or were you guys, how familiar were you guys with each other's work as you started this partnership?
I was pretty familiar with Ward's work. I mean, I'm a reader of Ward's, so for me it was easy. I think maybe I'd read his latest one. I made sure I read it or reread it again before I sat down with him at Thriller Fest. But yeah, I was pretty up to date. I knew it would be silly for me to just sit down and talk to people not kind of knowing what their stuff is, and I had narrowed it down. I mean, yeah, I went to Thriller Fest, and I was just like, let's see if we can put something together with Ward. Like I knew, I had 3 ideas, and I knew any of them would be great. But of course, when I mentioned something with aviation, and Ward had said I want to do something with aviation, I was like, okay, slam dunk. But my joke is that I'm running my own Scandinavian version of DEI. Nobody else had a Scandinavian name on my list of co-authors, so I picked Larsen, so you could have Thor and Larsen. And then when we cast the movie, I want Rebecca Ferguson to play Casey Sheridan, so we could have Thor, Larsen, and Ferguson, and we'll just keep it Scandinavian from front to back.
Well,
we're going to put all the Scandinavians to work.
Let's do that.
You can get a Skarsgård in that film.
You could. See, there you go. Look at you. We'll send you a check. Good job.
Just put me in the credits.
Can you guys elaborate a little bit more on like the writing process, doing this?
Yeah, what we would do is we would start out just talking about, we would kind of do it in chunks of like 6 or 8 chapters. And we talk about where we're going to go in these next 6 or 8 chapters. And one of us would go ahead and write it, send it to the other one, and the other one would do some heavy editing, and we just go back and forth like that. And it probably took about a dozen iterations of it. And it seemed to kind of accelerate at the end where we kind of got into a groove. It was a little more difficult at the beginning just because, we haven't done this before. We haven't worked together. Neither of us have ever done co-writing. So there was a little, getting used to the process. But once we kind of settled into it, I was really surprised. We got to talking about some of the mechanics of things, like, for example, keeping a timeline of what's going on. And I talked to Brad about that, and he told me his technique. And it was really stunning that it was almost identical to the way I do it, except he kept his version electronically. I keep mine on paper, but it was like the stuff we put on, it was almost exactly the same. And I thought it was cool that we, having written books for so long, independently came to this same process. So there was a lot of commonalities in what we did.
Yeah. Listen, the hardest thing at the end of this was just figuring out how to turn off all the comments in the column on Microsoft Change Tracker. That ended up being the most difficult thing at the end. You could see our whole conversation, all the bubbles and, comments and all that kind of stuff. But what was neat is this editing is we were editing as we went along, so that when we got our first draft done, it was unbelievably clean. I mean, we're catching stuff along the way and everything. So what we ended up turning in right off the bat was like super easy. And I remember I got Emily Bessler's edits, and Ward's like, do you want to help with them? I'm like, there's nothing here, man. This is like the smallest, lightest editing letter I've ever received. And I thought that spoke really well for the strength of the book, that Emily didn't have like, well, you had a plot hole here and you forgot this and you didn't tie that. There was none of that stuff. So the editing process was next to nothing, but next to nothing in the end, because we were doing it from the very beginning, if that makes sense.
You had two sets of eyes on it the whole time. Yeah.
And we
Yeah,
kind of both
exactly.
became editors in a sense where, he would write and I would edit his stuff and vice versa. So we were kind of becoming both authors and editors. And it came out with a real clean product in the end.
Did one of you have something you wanted to put in? The other one was like, no, hell no. Like we got to get rid of that, or
No, that was
No.
the thing. Like, no, I made this joke the other
No
like,
animosity?
yes, no creative pistols at dawn, none of that stuff. It didn't get rough at all, which was actually just delightful. I mean, you guys know Ward. You know what a
Sure.
wonderful guy he is, and he's the same way during the writing process. So we both would talk about stuff, and we'd be like, okay, what works here? Okay, that's good, but can we do better? I'm a big believer in take the first 4 ideas and throw them out, right?
Sure.
Because if you can think of these 4 things happening in the twist, the reader may see it coming too. So let's get to 5 or 6. So it was really good, and I think the relationship served to push us harder and to make us set the bar higher. We could do this here, but what about that? And I'd say I don't know how we would do this in this situation, and Ward would go, we do it like this. And so it was to kind of toil as a lone author with your own stuff, and now to have the benefit of working with someone whose talent and creativity you really respect, that it's just, I think, I don't know that I could have. I do know I couldn't have done any better than doing this co-written book with Ward. I mean, he's just wonderful to work with. He encouraged me to raise my game, and I think that's why we're. Listen, I have to be honest with you guys, and I'm always pushing deadlines with my editor and stuff, so I don't have tons of lead time for each Harvath because I hold on to them forever because I keep thinking I can make it better, I can make it better, I can make it better. And it drives my editor crazy, the perfectionist in me. But it's how I'm able to kind of stay where I'm at in my game and not lose ground. You know what I mean? I'm not just turning in stuff just to, okay, well, I got to make my deadline, so I'm going to turn it in. I'm really, I'm overly tight with it. But I think it's good. I think the end product, the Harvath books are great because I pay so much attention to them and I work so hard. Where that hurts me though is I can't get advanced review copies out very far in advance of a pub date because I'm constantly. I mean, you think about it. I'm touring for a book, then I got to come up with an idea for another book. I'm not 3 books ahead in my brain for Harvath. So what's really cool that happened with Cold Zero is Ward and I had this schedule. And we met the schedule. We got the book done when we were supposed to get it done, and we were able to send it out all these places. We got a Publisher's Weekly starred review and a Library Journal starred review. I've never gotten one of those my entire career, and I'm convinced, A, it's because the marketplace has changed. They used to hate thrillers at both of those places. Not hate them, but I would say thrillers didn't, like Rodney Dangerfield, got no respect from a lot of reviewers. And so things have changed in that sense, but it is so cool for me to look at this book that Ward and I did and to get this great critical acclaim and even the early fan stuff from NetGalley and us giving away our ARCs and you guys. It's just every time we turn around, we're just hearing, gosh, you guys did a great job. And that makes all the hard work worth it.
Yep.
Well, that's well deserved. Yeah. Congrats on that. And I actually noticed that as well because one of our listeners, Chris, she's one of our patrons who supports the podcast. She met you guys at a conference. Boy, it seems like in the fall, even maybe possibly late summer
in New Orleans.
Yes,
beginning of September.
Yes,
yeah.
And she got a copy of this, and she was telling us about it. And so it just felt like for months and months and months, we're hearing this positive feedback. And now I'm seeing that on social media and my feed being inundated with great reviews. And it allows your media tour to breathe a little bit more and the Today Show, Brad, your appearance. I felt like that really kicked things off well and coincided with the Netflix announcement.
That was cool.
Between you guys partnering on this, both of your experience, all of that you just shared, it almost seems like the perfect storm. Like it was just fated by the universe to get this book out. So
kind of did. It just seemed to fall into place. I mean, some books are just easier to write than others. And I think, you've probably read books before where you get to a point, you look at it and say, the writer was having fun with this. He was having a good time writing this
we
book.
could tell.
You can tell when they enjoy it.
That's where we were. We were at that place. We were really enjoying ourselves.
Yeah.
I love that. You know who we've seen that a lot from, which is interesting? We kind of feel like for some reason 2026 has already kicked off with co-authoring being the theme. We talked to Jack Carr about, what he's got going with MP Woodward. And we've been longtime fans of Andrews and Wilson, which they have their own imprint and everything, but they kind of did it from the jump. Like their first books as writers were co-authored. what is it like for you guys being established authors now, later in your career, 20 plus books? What is it like to now have gone through this process? What do you think you could still learn and take away having, this notch on your belt now? What's your biggest takeaway having done this?
I think it's definitely made my writing better. I've learned some good, tricks from Brad. There's things he emphasized that I look back and I go, yeah, he's right. Those are really good ideas. You mentioned the endings. You always like to end a chapter on a hard ending where you're really kind of leaving the reader on the hook, or he's got to keep reading to see what happens. What came of this. And there were a number of times when I'd write some chapters and send him, and he'd send back his notes, and a lot of the notes were like, the ending, let's make the ending better, and he would say it in a positive way, and I was like, yeah, you're right, it could be a little better, and that's what we do, and I think it ends up showing. So I learned from this. I think it's going to make me a better writer on my solo books.
Yeah, I gotta echo that. I think my writing has become considerably better from the experience working with Ward, seeing how he does things, how he works through character development, and looks for the right place to pivot and give you the twist in the intrigue and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it is. I don't want to say I wish Ward and I had done this years ago, because I think it was just the right time for both of us right now. You can say, oh, if we'd only done this years ago. No, this was the right time to do it, and it's the right book and everything. I think all the stars aligned. Like you said, it was the perfect storm. And this is we're super excited to get this into the world and have the fans be able to read it, because we're very proud of what we did, and we did it with the reader in mind. I mean, it sounds silly, but our whole thing was, all right, how do we surprise people? Let's get a rug pull in here. Let's give them a twist they're not expecting. What's a different way to do this? Blah, 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 blah. So, we built this book for my audience and Ward's audience together, right? Because we know that we've got these great thriller readers, and we're like, okay, those are our hardcore true fans. What's going to surprise them? What have they not seen from either of us before, and how do we deliver that in the book? So it was a great experience.
I mean, you guys talk about the positives. Were there? You mentioned that there wasn't really any creative differences, but were there any hurdles, or what was your biggest difficulty in doing
snores.
this?
Ward snores, and that got there were a couple of nights where that we had to put him on the couch.
Good luck on the tour then.
I think the scheduling of anything, just doing basically 2 books a year now, it's a challenge. I mean, we did it, and I think we can do it, but it's a challenge. So it took a lot of discipline for us to both do this, because his books they take a long time to write, and I'm busy with mine too. I just wrote the Clancy book, that took a lot of time. And so it's, I think that was probably my biggest challenge, was just, the scheduling of it.
Yeah, that really is, when you're writing a book a year and then you're co-writing an additional book. Yeah, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. It takes a lot of, you have to be very organized. You have to be very disciplined. So yeah, that's actually a great point. That I wholeheartedly concur with that.
Is it something, having learned these lessons, you would consider again, either 2 books in a year, or just simply this partnership, co-authoring another standalone?
Oh, we're already at work on a 2027 book.
They're in the works.
We can break that here. We're already working on a co-written 2027
you
book.
You heard it here first.
There you go. We're breaking news.
There we go.
With you guys.
I love that. Is it going to be in the same kind of vein as this one, or is it another one of those ideas, Brad, that you had floating around that you had considered originally?
So I completed, Ward doesn't even know this story. So I completed, we got Cold Zero turned in, and I was talking with my agent and everything. And my agent goes, okay, so that was one of the 3 ideas you took to Thriller Fest. What about the next idea? And I'm like, okay, well, I've got this idea. And she goes, have you called Ward yet to see if Ward likes it? And I'm like, not yet. She goes, you had a great time working with him on Cold Zero. Like, that ought to be the first call you make, is to call Ward, say, here's another idea. Tell me what you think, and if you'd be interested in doing it, And so I was thrilled to call him and just say, hey, I got another idea. Do you want to saddle up and ride again and do another one? And he said, I'm doing the Clancy book now, but yeah, I'd like to do it. So we're already working on our 2027 book.
Love that.
So I'll still have a Harvath book. I'll still,
Right.
every summer I'll have a Harvath book, and now we've got the Brad and Ward book this winter, and then next winter we'll have a brand new Brad and Ward.
And I'll
book
have
too.
one of my books next fall, in the
Perfect.
fall of 27
for the
27.
Slayton series.
for the Slayton True Miller
Miller.
series.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I was
Follow
going to
on.
ask. What's next? Because I know, Brad, you've got Choke Point. Where are we at with Choke Point with your schedule? Because that's a June release?
Can I
months?
curse on this?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
So down here in my left-hand screen, fuck you and fuck you in the upper right-hand screen. This has been because of one comment you guys made.
Oh,
I talk about Ward pushing me as a writer. You two have stuck in the back of my mind. So guess what I am not doing in this book, and it has really caused me to work my ass off. There is no get a guy to get a guy. That has echoed in my head. You didn't accuse me of that, but what you guys said is that is one thing that you see often in thrillers that you do not like. And I heard that and I internalized that, and I have been pushing this. I'm thrilled with this new Harvath. It's really, really cool. But that thing that you guys said, I was like, Jesus, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Get a guy to get a guy. And it has been, your voices have echoed in my head as I've been working on this book, which is tough
living
for a
rent-free
pantser.
in Brad Thor's front.
Yeah, exactly. Living rent-free. But it's a good thing. It's a good thing because not that I fall back on get a guy to get a guy, but, you got to do 100,000 words. It's 350 pages. And there's got to be steps and you got to get there and all that kind of stuff. But I have purposely avoided get a guy to get a guy in this book. It's been hard. I find I would love to pose this question to Ward. I find that no matter how many books I've written, it does not get easier. The process of writing doesn't get any easier. It is just as hard, if not harder for me now than it's ever been before. It's my 25th Harvath. I'm trying to do things with them that readers have never seen him do, not to repeat things. This is kind of a milestone. 25 seems like something where I should be extra working hard to pull out stops. But I do that with every book because I don't want to rest on my laurels. But the get a guy to get a guy thing you will not see in this book. So thank you.
Wow. That's awesome. Brad Thor just said "fuck you." That's wow.
Sorry,
but that also means our
I hope
commentary.
we don't get demonetized.
Well,
I hope not.
I wish we
Bleep
were
it out.
monetized in the first place, but that's a side
You have
note.
to be monetized to be
You have to be.
demonetized.
Yes, exactly. We do this because we love reading and we love you guys.
Yeah.
So
That's kind of the point, though, because we listen to all the interviews. So when you're on tour, if they have any virtual screenings, and then all the podcasts. And the thing is, we kind of want to come at it from more of a fan perspective, where a lot of media platforms are that, kind of promotion cheerleader perspective. And so we want to promote. Absolutely. But we also want to incorporate, the general fandom, because that's how Chris and I started. We're just two guys, very average, maybe even less than guys, talking about books. And most of our fans have identified and said, your conversations are like the conversations I'm dying to have when I finish a book. And I just don't have anybody around me who kind of I could talk that talk with. And so we do try to stick to the fan perspective, but that does often mean we come sometimes with harsh critiques. But I do hope everyone realizes if we're covering a book on the pod, and if we have an author on the pod, we are absolutely recommending read everything they ever wrote. Because if we're not covering it, that means something. If we're not tearing it apart and criticizing it or giving our feedback on it, we're not going to waste your time with that. So the fact that we choose to put the books on the slate means we absolutely love them and want the people out there reading them. So
Awesome.
I guess that's who we are.
yeah, we've been going strong. It's almost 5 years. Our 5th year anniversary coming up in April. So
Congratulations.
300. This is going to be something 310 or so episodes. So it's
And I did get to thank you guys over the summer, but I want to say thank you again. It was so cool when you were taking Edge of Honor to the locations in the DC area and
Mike
taking
loves
pictures
doing
of
that.
it. That
Mike loves doing
that
that.
was very cool. So thank you again for that.
And you're sure. And I stand by. That was honestly, I think that was the most fun, enjoyable book you wrote. And just the idea of a summer release,
wow.
July 4th, it was in my neighborhood in DC. That book really did something special for me. And when we did our 2025 best of, it was definitely high up the list. And I think I stood by. It was the most fun joyride of the year.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. Glad to hear it.
to bring it back to Cold Zero, though, I think this book has an opportunity to be just like that. Like, I think I'm so excited to get not only our fans' perspectives, but just everyone else that is in this community. I want them to read this book because of how much I enjoyed reading. I immediately handed it over to my wife. I'm like, all right, I've been begging her. She reads like not this genre, and I was like, you got to read one of my books, please. Read one of the books I cover on the pod. And I was thinking about what she's like. All right, fine. And when I finished this book, I was like, all right, this is the one I want you to start with. I was like, this is cool. Like, you'll like this. And then if you don't like this, then you're not gonna like anything else that I that I read. So, but yeah.
Does that mean you'll go up to the Arctic and do some on-scene filming up there?
That'd be fun.
You're gonna take her to the Svalbards and a little cold vacation.
Exactly.
Can I push on another or tug on another string, which is, as much as we're seeing in the genre, 2026 is already like the co-author push. That's kind of a thing we're noticing. We're also noticing a shift towards short stories. And I know you've each dabbled. David Slayton, we loved getting an origin story a number of years ago. Ward, that was a really cool way to tie him in and his origins with Mossad. And Brad, we know at one point you had released a short story, and there were also a couple other addendums, and we talked about that once, about the lessons learned from the big box retailers and how that happened.
Yep.
But do you see
special
value?
edition that had a bonus? Yeah.
Exactly. Do you see value in short stories as a medium? I know Andrews and Wilson are doing a monthly short story. That's part of their new imprint. Jack Carr's toyed with the idea with us, saying something that he never got to finish up in a prior book, Savage Son, he might want to explore as a short story. Is that something you guys would ever consider in the near future or beyond?
For me, I think time is more of an issue. I just don't have the time for too much, and I want to get too much on my plate, because I feel like if you start getting overwhelmed, then the quality goes down. Like Brad was saying, the reason he's always late turning his books, because he wants to redo it. He can always make them better, and that's really where my spare time goes. So I've done a couple short stories. I enjoy them, but just for special projects like anthologies, things like that. But in terms of just doing one to support my main series, I don't see anytime soon doing that.
So I agree with Ward. So number one, it's the time. I don't know that the ROI is there. I know it's great for fans, but if I have to come up with an idea for a short story, could that have been a book? Like, the energy is the same. Like, if it's a short story idea, it's got to be a great idea, just like it's got to be a great idea for a book. So, but at the end of the day, it's just there's only 24 hours in the day, and doing 2 books a year now I don't know how I cram a short story in there. When I've done it, I like, for the Thriller Writers Association, we did an anthology. When like David Morrell and Gail Lynn started it, it was a dues-paying organization. Now it doesn't have to be, because we did that anthology, the Thriller anthology, and it made so much money, we were able to convert, just open up the Thriller Association to anybody that wanted to join. So, so that was like that I was able to do. Now I agree with Ward. It's like, where's my time best spent?
Right. That ROI.
Yeah.
I get that.
Especially with this 2-a-year model, that potentially could be the way forward, or at least this year and next. That's a lot of time right there.
So what's up next? You guys got your book tour. It kicks off pretty soon, right?
Couple of days, right?
Yeah, we go to Savannah this Friday.
Yeah, this weekend we're going to Savannah Book Festival.
We're the headliners. We're the opening acts. They can't start without us. They can't open it without us.
You're also in a lot of warm locations. Was that by design?
No, that's David Brown. That was yeah. So David Brown said he said, is Ward willing to tour? And he said, well, wait a second. Let's see how you guys do on stage. He's like, I want to see you guys together and decide if I want to put you on the road. David's super smart. So we were interviewed at BoucherCon. Andrew Clavin was kind enough to step in because I think wasn't going to be Jim Rollins, and then Jim couldn't make it to BoucherCon. So Jim, I know why. He owes me a lot of poker money, so I kind of could have predicted that he wasn't going to show up. Where's the money, Lebowski? Where's the money? So anyway, we did this, and David's like, you and Ward were fantastic. I want to put both of you on the road, blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay, well, it's going to be February. And he said, no, I've already thought about it. He said, I'm only going to send you and Ward to warm places for the tour, because he didn't want to deal with weather delays if he could avoid it and stuff like that. It wasn't just to kind of pamper us, but yeah, I mean, we get to go to some nice places. For me in particular, it's great because now I'm doing 6 cities twice a year, so that gives fans 12 cities in which they can see me. Now, if you want Cold Zero signed by me and Ward, you've got to see me and Ward together, or see us each separately and bring your copy of Cold Zero to a signing. So that's kind of the nice thing about doing this, is the people are going to get books signed by both of us at the same time, which is fun.
So I walk away from this thing we did at BoucherCon. We're up on stage, we're talking about the book. And as we're walking away, Brad says, well, you passed the audition. I was auditioning? I didn't even know.
We didn't want to make you nervous. We wanted you to just be you, and you knocked it out of the park. You did a great job.
Now you just put him in a polar bear costume for the Netflix cameras, and we're good to go. You can have him in the show.
That's it. That's funny. Yeah. Or Ward and I will be passengers maybe as the plane goes down. You know what I mean?
There you go.
We need a cameo. We definitely need that cameo.
Absolutely.
I guess if you had to pick a cameo, what would ultimate cameo? What would it be?
Gosh, that's a good question. I don't know. I gotta think. Well, Ward, do you have a particular role you'd want to take? It depends on if they let you speak. That's the other thing. Sometimes they'll let the author in, but you can't say anything, or you get to be a desk clerk like Stephen King.
There aren't that many characters. Well, I guess there's some characters on some of the ships, so yeah, maybe I could be on a ship somewhere, just a crew.
I do picture you as Sharp. I mean, I could see it.
I could see that too while we were writing it.
Yeah.
I could see Ward as Sharp. Absolutely.
I also thought of Chris as Casey Sheridan, but that's another story.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, while we're messing around, do you mind if after we close out, we take you for just a few minutes to do a couple of spoiler-filled questions? We'll have the spoiler alerts. We'll release it as a separate bonus, just to entice fans to go out, pre-order the book, read the book, and then come back for more from these two. Because when you finish this book, there are some explosive things, 2 scenes in particular, that I definitely want to hear about from you guys, how you got there, because wow, they do something I've never seen before in any book. So if you want to hear a little teaser from these guys about how they came up with that, tune into the spoiler section right after this. But before we transition to that, as both of you know, there's a thriller podcast, No Limits tradition here, and it's to leave our guests with a limerick. So I wrote a limerick for you two on this one. A flight vanished where Arctic winds blow, as sky fire sets rivals aglow. Brad and Ward spun the tale of ice, spies, and a trail. One wrong step and you'll freeze down below. Thank you guys for spending the time with us tonight.
Very good. Thank you for having us.
That was awesome.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed that interview with Brad and Ward. I guess next up, we got a scorecard of this book. We got to talk about it. We've said how much we've liked it. We've enjoyed it. But we want to get into the nitty gritty with it. So that'll be next time. Before we get out of here, we need to thank our patrons, our deputy directors, Sherry F. and Brad E., our special agents, Adam, Mike, Ben, Daryl, George, Matt, Don, and Chris. Please subscribe, rate, and review to all 3 seasons of No Limits. You can find us at thrillerpod.com or on Twitter and Instagram at thrillerpodcast. And as always, just let Ward and Brad be Ward and Brad.
All right, guys, if you've stuck around, spoiler warning coming, so get ready in the next few seconds. You must have read Cold Zero to continue. Spoiler warning coming now. I don't know about you, Chris, but guys, spoiler section right here. I'm about to drop a bomb. Who came up with the idea to bomb the ice so that this submarine can surface? When that happened, at this culminating moment, I lost my mind. Yeah. I lost it.
That was Ward.
Yeah, I've just had myself in Casey's, mindset, and it just seemed like the perfect out. I've dropped a lot of bombs in my day, so I know what they could do and can't do. But yeah, I came up with that one, and I thought it was just kind of, yeah, I thought it was a pretty elegant way to, figure it all out.
Very
So
cool.
yeah, I like that.
You think they could do it? Can they crack the ice with whatever munitions?
Sure. Yeah, bomb's a bomb. Yeah, you just got to maybe adjust the fusing so it penetrates a little more, things like that, which you can arrange. So yeah, I don't see why not.
I love that. I love that idea was, I don't know, when I was reading that part, I was like, this is awesome.
And it didn't even raise the body count.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it was just it was almost like that answer was in front of us the whole time. And it was just waiting for, it's the low hanging fruit waiting to be grabbed, but nobody sees it. And when Casey pulled it out, my jaw dropped, just hit the floor.
Cool.
And it worked.
That's what I was hoping for.
And now how about the other one? What about that icebreaker? Because when the stakes were already high, but it was almost more personally high. Like I was invested in the captain. I was invested in Chen. I'm invested in Casey. But the stakes rose to an exponentially more dangerous situation when that icebreaker sunk the Russian sub. This is a direct on the path to war between Russia and China, two superpowers. Yeah. How'd you come up with doing that?
I don't know who exactly the idea that was, but Brad always talks about raising the stakes. That's one of his usual critiques. We got to raise the stakes higher. Make it even more death defying. So I don't know where the idea came from exactly, but that's something he goes on about, and I think he's right. The higher you can raise the stakes, the more invested the reader will be.
In all fairness, if gun to my head, I'm going to say that was Ward's idea to ram into the submarine, because we said we've got Skyfire. It's like Chekhov's gun, right? You put the gun on the stage, you see it in Act 1, you have to fire it by the end of the play. So we had to use Skyfire. We figured we couldn't use it throughout. It couldn't be the Chinese send an airplane and you take that down too because the battery's draining and all that kind of stuff. And so that one made the most sense, and that was active war kind of territory. So we talked a lot about what does this mean? How do the Russians react to that? How do the Chinese react in back and forth? So yeah, that was, high stakes, global stakes, war potentially in the Arctic. But yeah, that was Ward that said, well, let's do it that way. Because we talked about a couple of different permutations. How and where are we going to use Skyfire? And that was Ward too. So this is the kind of just awesome stuff that Ward brought to the book.
We had this MacGuffin, this Skyfire, and we did not identify exactly what it was till probably a third of the way through the book. We kind of knew roughly what we were going to do with it, but it was kind of vague, and we left it that way, which was a little risky, but we left it that way and then kind of went back and filled it in, and I think it worked.
Like every time we talked about Skyfire, immediately in my head, all I could see was the briefcase from like North by Northwest. You don't know what's inside. It just kind of glows when the briefcase opens up. Right. And that was in Pulp Fiction. I think they did that in Pulp Fiction too. So it's like we knew there was something there. We hadn't figured out like, okay, how are we going to use it? Where are we going to use it? But that again, we're pantsers, right? So we knew we would feel the moment when we got there, that it was time to use it. It didn't matter that we didn't know exactly where we were going to use it. We would know when we got there, and when we did, we knew.
Yeah, I love that. And you even set the groundwork for it with the opening scene, because that was a fun ride off the jump with the car being taken over, because that's also another Brad Thorism is ripped from the headlines. I think a lot of people are wondering, when will AI take over, start driving our cars for us or controlling these systems that we rely on? And it could become a matter of life and death. And you guys addressed that right off the jump. So when Skyfire was used in that manner to control the icebreaker, hit the sub, it wasn't that out of the blue. It's kind of like we were prepped to already understand. There's little hints of what this thing can do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, wow.
Yeah, sorry. Now that like you guys are explaining it to us, I can kind of see. I want to go back and reread now that I understand what you guys did, and now I think I could better pick out who what, and where, what happened. But
yeah, so does this mean you guys didn't know for sure that that's exactly how it would end, that the rescue would be on the sub after the fighters bombed, or did you kind of know that was where you were headed?
I think we knew where we were headed. We just didn't know what the what the rescue would look like. Like I learned from Ward about just how the special operations guys were going to have to prep a runway and all this kind of stuff. And we talked about, okay, what happens when the plane comes in? What are the Chinese going to do when they see that plane come in and all this kind of stuff? So it was a discussion all along. We knew where our exit point was, so to speak. We knew, and we kind of wanted a double thing to happen there. So, you think, okay, great, they're going to get out. They're free. Finally, they're getting off this ice and they're rescued. And then surprise,
Yeah. It was really kind of serendipitous. We were not planning on this from the beginning, but about halfway through the book, I was out flying with Southwest, and I just happened to fly with the guy who flies C-130s, LC-130s in the New York Air National Guard. It's the only unit in the world that flies C-130s on snow skis, and they go up to Greenland and down to Antarctica. So he was just as fond of knowledge about, what these airplanes could do. And I like, well, could you land that up in the Arctic on an ice sheet? He was like, yeah, if the conditions were right, if the ice was thick enough, sure. So, and we went from there. So it was just happened. I just stupidly got into that. And I think it worked great. I really like putting that airplane in there in spite of what happened in the end to it. That was Brad. No, the airplane's got to crash. There's got to be fire.
Yeah.
Brimstone.
I was wondering, I was like, is this it? Is this the rescue? Are they just going to land, get out, exfil? And I wasn't sure. I was like, okay, if that happens, I'm pretty satisfied. I'm glad they're safe. But how could this go wrong? And then when it all went to hell, and that brought in that traditional thriller scene as well. Like I said, we do get the payoff of a special operations shootout, mission goes wrong, think on your feet, pivot in the moment. That's very hallmark of the genre that we read about these super assassin operators embedded with these special ops teams. And it was almost refreshing, like 3/4 through the book, to be like, oh, they're doing that as well. Like I'm getting all these beats that I'm used to and that I really enjoy.
Yep.
That was great. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate you coming on tonight and even doing this little after hours bit with us.
Thanks for the limerick.
Besides the ending, what was your favorite part to write?
What is the question for each of us?
Yeah, or either of them.
So I really like the ending we just talked about, because Ward and I went back and forth about, okay, how should this go? Should the Chinese, so originally we talked about, should the Chinese blow up that C-130 in the air before it even lands? I'm like, no. That's got to come down on the ice. We've got to have exactly what Mike said. You got to have that feeling like, okay, they're getting out of it. And again, I said to Ward, and it's so funny because this is the one kind of creative, funny thing we have is that I've seen every action movie that there is. Ward has not seen every action. I'm like, hey, do you remember in Con Air when he's like, Brad, didn't see it.
I haven't seen that.
Haven't seen it. That's like his answer whenever I asked him. So I said, when you think about it like a movie, which is how I write my stuff, I'm like, I want to see everybody in the theater think, oh, that's awesome. Normally when they do a rescue mission, they'll have an American flag in the, like if it's a C-130 and stuff, it's this whole, you're being repatriated. And it's this whole, I even get emotional thinking about it, but there's this cool thing they do in the aircraft and everything. And so I thought, all right, this is awesome. They're going to get off the ice. Everybody's kind of letting their guard down, and then boom. And so it gives us a whole nother ramp up of action in another kind of action package that comes out of that explosion. So that was my favorite part of the whole book, if I have to pick one.
Okay.
I enjoyed the polar bear.
Ward, same for you?
The polar bear.
Yeah, there you go.
The polar bear.
Yeah, the way he's just a footprint at first, and he's just out there somewhere. He's there in the background. You don't know what's going to come of it, but
circling like a shark.
We didn't know what was going to come of it. We just knew he was out there somewhere. So just this natural threat that nobody can govern, that's beyond the control of any of these great governments. We ended up using them in the end.
Yeah. That was fun too. That he came all the way back. That was good.
As much as the main motivation is to have domination and control, Skyfire almost embodies the technologic age and humanity's willingness to control. The two things that are most deadly in this book essentially are the elements and nature itself. You're up against physics, and as much as you try to control the world and dominate the world, that's still a factor you've got to consider. So the polar bear encapsulated that for me.
Cool.
Love it. Guys, pick up this book, pre-order if you haven't. Well, if you listen to this, you heard the spoilers, so you definitely have already read this. But Brad, Ward, we'll talk to you next time you guys have a book coming out, and appreciate you always spending the time.
Awesome. Yes, thanks, guys.
Thanks
for having us.